session, but I'm Darlene Hanson, and I am, I guess, the chair of Communication Access Connect, and I have a team that works with me. I have with me here my friend Emily. She'll be with us for a few minutes here. She's interning with me this now for a bit here, so she'll join us when she can. But welcome to Communication Access, first one in January. We're going to be talking today about supported decision making, which we'll get into in a second. But I want to introduce you to Michaela because she's our right and left arms.
Hi, I'm Michaela. I'm the program assistant for the empowerment team that hosts Communication Access Connect. So if you have any questions, I'm the person answering in the chat, and I'm mostly do the tech support, and I'll do a couple announcements today, but I'm here.
Yeah, thank you, Michaela. And then I also have with our other team member is William Del Rosario. You want to introduce yourself, William?
Sorry, Darlene. He's going to introduce himself when we do the presentation.
Okay, sorry. All right, he's multitasking today. Okay, he's got two hats. He's presenter and William's on our team, on the Communication Access Connect team. And he's an AAC user. Before we get too far into the presentation, I do want to send out some good vibes and positive energy to one of our Communication Access Connect dear friends, Deva. And if you come here regularly, you know Deva. She has talked to us about revoicing. She's been a professor in New York, professor here. She's an artist. She designs clothing, all kinds of things. Well, Deva's been struggling with some health conditions, and I just got word today that she's on hospice. And I'm telling the group because we're going to miss her, but I'm also telling the group because I think it's really great if some of us can send her some positive energy as she goes through this next step for herself. Okay, we'll miss her. So that's my Deva announcement. I want to welcome Vivian Doe, and Vivian is, or is it Doe? I don't know. Do you say Doe or Doe?
Doe.
Doe? Okay, I say Doe, but Siri says Doe. So then I started getting confused. Siri, it must be right. Anyways, Vivian is with Disability Voices United, and she is heading up our grant on supported decision making. And we have a bunch of different supported decision making activities coming up, and I thought, gosh, this is a good thing for her to share and tell us what's going on. And hopefully you guys could all get involved. So she's brought with her a team of people. And you want to introduce your team of people, Vivian? And we'll take
So again, hi everyone, I'm Vivian Doe. I'm the project manager for our Supported Decision Making Training and Information Center here at DVU. Today we're really excited to give a presentation giving an introduction on supported decision making, talking a little bit about supported decision making and communication access. Today I have two lovely members of the Mod Squad, Mastering Our Destiny squad. We have William and Bella who will introduce themselves once we get started with the slides. And we're really all excited to talk about supported decision making with everyone today, as well as mentioning other opportunities to get more involved and to learn more about supported decision making as well.
Okay, so really quickly before Vivian gets started, I'll just do a couple of announcements. So next month, you've gone to the same link and you get these reminder emails from Zoom for at least a year that say like you've signed up for Communication Access Connect. Don't forget it's today. Next month, we're going to switch to a new link. Our team has a different Zoom account to use. I'm going to send a reminder to everyone who's currently registered, but if you go to get on CAC next month and the link isn't working, look for a new one from us. So either in the DVU newsletter, specifically an email from our team, or it'll be on our website as well. We'll need a new link. And it'll make you fill out the registration form just one time like you did last time. And then you'll be good for the rest of the year. And we're just trying to make sure that people who aren't coming to CAC anymore aren't getting emails, and we'll probably do this every year. So look for an email from us on that. Then there's two events coming up. So the first, both of our presenters today will be there, but there's a showcase for the Center for Youth Choice, Center for Youth Voice, Youth Choice Civic. It gets me every time. Youth Voice, Youth Choice. And they're going to be sharing some projects that have to do with supported decision making and alternative to guardianship, like we're doing today. And it's a really great opportunity to see what they've been up to. So I'm just putting the link in the chat right now to register for the event. And then there's also a flyer, which I'll put in there if you're interested in coming to see those projects. And then if you are in the San Gabriel or Pomona Regional Center, if that happens to be your regional center, and if you were impacted by the Eaton fire, either evacuated or still out of your home, if that's something that you're experiencing, they are having a resource fair for emergency response, and there'll be organizations there who can help you with next steps. So I'm putting the link in here for that flyer as well.
And share that with people. I mean, you might not be, but you might know people, and they're not here because they've got other priorities right now. So if you know anybody, feel free to share that information with them.
All right, that's it from me.
Great, thanks, Michaela. Okay, well, with that, let's bring on Vivian and the 2/3 of the Mod Squad.
Okay.
Put in the chat, do you guys know what supported decision making is? I'm just kind of curious as we're getting started here.
Seeing more no's or just know what the concept is than yeses right now. All right. Looks like most people know a little bit about supported decision making. And yes, as Darlene said, it's going to be a great time to learn more about it. Generally, yes, it is an alternative to conservatorship. And so we'll begin talking a little more about it. So again, welcome to, everyone can see my slides, right? The screen is sharing now.
Yes, you're good.
Okay. So this is our presentation on introduction to supported decision-making, exploring how we can use supported decision-making in your life. Again, I'm Vivian, the project manager for our supported decision-making training and information center. And now I'll pass it off to Bella to introduce herself.
Hello everyone and thank you for being here. My name is Isabella Santoyo and I am from a busy beachside community of Long Beach called Belmont Shore. I am a soon-to-be 23-year-old with long brunette hair and walnut-colored eyes. I am Hispanic, autistic, and a bilingual, multimodal communicator who uses augmentative alternative communication. Because I live my life following the principles of supported decision-making, I have been able to actualize some of my life goals. I will be starting my third semester at Golden West College where I am the first AAC user at my campus. Pursuing higher education is one of my loves. My other loves are traveling the world and creating waves of change with my advocacy. As a public speaking advocate, I share my lived experience and thoughts on issues relating to access, inclusion, and equity. Last year I was selected to serve as a youth ambassador for California's state team for the Center on Youth Voice Youth Choice, where I advanced my self-advocacy training. I have a passion for advocacy and love to present to audiences like you on supported decision-making and alternatives to conservatorship. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Bella. And then we'll go ahead and have William introduce himself as well.
Hello, My name is William Del Rosario, and I am an intern with DVU and a member of the California Supported Decision-Making Team with the Center for Youth Voice on Youth Choice, or CIVIC. Born and raised in Orange, California, I'm a Hispanic Filipino with short brown hair and I wear glasses. I'm a lifelong learner in my mid-20s, who just earned my high school diploma, one letter at a time. I have autism, apraxia, am a multimodal communicator and use augmentative and alternative communication, or AAC, via typing and my iPad. As we begin our presentation, I invite you to join me in my mission to make communication and a self-directed lifestyle accessible to all. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, William. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started for today. So I just wanted to start off with this quote: supported decision-making is a human right. Everyone should have the right to make choices with support and without the courts. So whoever you are on here today, whether you're a self-advocate, you're a family member, we just want to emphasize that supported decision-making can be used every single day, and it's your right to be able to make these decisions with whatever support that you need. And all of this is an alternative to conservatorship. So to give you kind of an overview of today, we're going to go over some risks of conservatorships, do an introduction to supported decision-making, talk about decision-making and capacity building, as well as communication access in the next section, supported decision-making in action, where Bella and William will share some of their own stories as self-advocates, sharing their experiences. And then finally, we'll end with some helpful forms for supported decision-making, so that people can learn more about different supported decision-making agreements or power of attorneys and other tools that you can use to enact supported decision-making in your life. So we'll go ahead and get started with some risks of conservatorships. I know some people mentioned that they knew what supported decision-making is, or it's an alternative conservatorship. How many of you all know about a little bit about conservatorships? You can just leave a message in the comments and we can see how everyone is acquainted with conservatorships. Some a bit, okay. Yes, some, okay. So it seems like we have a kind of a mixed group about what we know about conservatorships. So in essence, conservatorships is created from a formal court hearing before a judge. And then in this hearing, the judge will appoint a conservator who then makes decisions for the conservatee, or the person with a disability. So oftentimes with conservatorships, adults without a disability, often have no control over what they spend their money on, how to manage their health care, who they see and spend their time with, where to live, who they live with, and who they have relationships with. And so in essence, it's a loss of rights when a conservatorship is enacted. So aside from the emphasis of conservatorship is goes against human rights of being able to make your own decisions, the risks are really real for conservatorships. Oftentimes it is a permanent decision, though with AB 1663, which is a law that passed a couple of years ago, we're making strides to be able to overturn conservatorships and restore people's rights more easily. Other risks are that there's often a lack of court checkups. Another thing is that half of conservators are strangers in California. So anyone over the age of 18 can become a court-appointed conservator. Sometimes even the regional center can act as an agent of GDS to be a conservator. There can also be professionals that their whole job is to be a conservator, and these professional conservators are then paid through the conservatees funds. And so With this, the conservatorship is often in the court's hands, which means at any given point in time, the court can remove the parents as the conservators. There's also issues when there's no clear succession plan. Let's say the parent who's the conservator wants to pass off the conservatorship to a sibling. At the end of the day, the court has full authority to choose who becomes the next conservator. And they can restrict people's visitation rights with other family members. So even if you have a plan of succession, you still cannot be 100% sure who will be the conservator. There is. And so other things is that there's no extra protection when there's a conservatorship, whether it's to financial scams, to abuse and things like that. So there is no extra protection there. And so next, we'll go ahead and start talking about what the alternative can be, which is supported decision making. And again, if anyone has any questions throughout, please feel free to leave them in the chat and we'll be sure to answer them. So what is supported decision making? Supported decision making, in essence, is it's allowing people with disabilities to help choose supporters to help them make their choices and their decisions. These supporters help them understand, consider, and communicate not just their decisions and their preferences. So supported decision making can be very informal. You don't need a written agreement or anything like that. You can just practice it with your supporters, whether that's your family members, your staff, or even professionals. However, if you do want to formalize it, it can be written into formal documents, which we'll talk about later, which is supported decision-making agreements. The most important part is unlike conservatorships, which are more rigid in structure, supported decision-making is designed to change as life changes. If you end up needing more support in certain areas or you need less support in certain areas, you can change that fluidly. You can change your circles of support, where you need support and when you need support.
For me, this starts with presuming competence. We need to think about the possibilities and opportunities while living our lives as young adults. Please think about this without overthinking for the people you support. Decisions are made every day, both big and small. My parents practice SDM with me, and the amount of support I need can be different each time. For example, recently I was getting fitted for new eyeglasses. The technician picked out 2 or 3 styles for me to try on and started to tell me which pair he thought looked the best. My mom was supporting me and noticed there were choices in colors. She asked me if I wanted to try another color. I did, and it felt great to be asked. Everyone had an opinion as to which color looked the best. There was one problem: I couldn't see without my glasses. It would have been easy to let them choose, but my mom wanted me to decide. She had my dad take my picture with the different choices, and then I could look at them with my glasses on. My point is, even if it takes extra time, believing in someone and giving them the dignity of choice is how you start. These same practices can be carried over to bigger decisions. It is not easy to change old ways, and if you haven't been doing this, just try. The person you support isn't counting your mistakes. They're counting on you.
Supported decision making looks different for each person, depending on how one communicates. I get support when needed to make decisions. Don't we all deserve this, right? My life is, and should be, governed by me. Irregardless of who I am with, family members, my brothers or support staff, my decisions matter and are respected. My circle of support are trusted members that I have chosen. As a young adult, it means navigating my life through whatever comes my way. For me, all days are not equal. On a good day, life and my choices are seamless, and on a challenging day, I need my circle of support to rally me on. It was through SDM that I went on to earn my high school diploma. This was a decision that I made for myself. It mattered to me, and thankfully I was successful in obtaining the support I needed to pursue it. Like you, I rely on my loved ones to guide me when needed, but no one controls how I live and what I can do. SDM respects and gives me agency over my life.
So some advantages to supported decision making, like Bella was talking about, giving her agency over her life, and for William, just sharing about your stories and making sure that your preferences and your choices are respected at every step of the way, no matter how small the decision you may think it is to how big the decision you think it is. One of the advantages of supported decision making is an expanded circle of support. You want to center yourself around people who are your supporters. Unlike where in conservatorship, you just have one appointed conservator to make the decisions for you. Here, you have a whole group of trusted supporters, whether it's your family, outside of family, and you are able to have this circle of support even after your parents pass. Other things is support without the courts. You don't need to involve the courts in any decisions, whether it's wanting to make a move and move to a different location. You don't need any authority from the courts to make those decisions. They can be changed, flexibility to change your mind, which is really important because unlike conservatorships, supported decision-making can be really informal. And even if you do decide to use a supported decision-making agreement, it can be ended or it can be changed at any time without the court or any official involvement. And finally, I know a lot of people are still worried about supported decision-making, not having I know sometimes we want some legally binding documents to ensure our right to use supported decision-making. We just want to help everyone rest assured that with AB 1663, supported decision-making was written into law in California, and you can go through it more formally by creating a supported decision-making agreement and adding language and attaching it and notarizing it to items such as powers of attorneys, HIPAA authorization forms, and there are more formal routes that you can take to use supported decision-making as well, which we'll continue to talk later on. So our next section is we're going to talk more about decision-making, capacity building, and how do we begin to develop and use these skills of supported decision-making in our lives.
As we think about SDM as a communication tool, remember you are advocating for your decision-making process. Communication has many dimensions. Are we stuck on yes or no, wants or needs? What about opinions, ideas, positive or negative comments? Think about communication functioning to bring autonomy. Giving me the time to type, and then asking the real questions about my thoughts before making decisions about me are two important things my team can do. Together, we can shift the story from needing others to decide for us, to living a life with real advocacy on the road to independence. I think that it is less about the mode, and more about the method of presuming competence. Communication can happen with low-tech AEC, such as a letter board, or a choice board. Or high-tech, like a speech-generating device such as an iPad. It might even be my emerging speaking voice. It can also be note tech with a gesture or expression. I would like there to be less focus on the tools and more focus on communication. Dignity of risk. Communication is essential for living. It should come first, not last. There should be access everywhere, not just the speech room. It is not something that can be measured with mastery tests to prove eligibility. It is a basic human right that we are all deserving of. Today you are hearing from Bella and I, who clearly have much to say. It wasn't always this way, and it's important to remember that the accomplished young adults we are becoming all started somewhere. My challenge to you is to shift your mindset to think about the possibilities, not the capacities. Communication shouldn't be an accommodation. It should be the expectation.
Very well said, William. Like William is saying, supported decision making is all about understanding and supporting communication preferences. And communication preferences can look so different. So it can be something as big as sitting down and creating a person-centered plan and listening to what your preferences are, what your goals are, what your passions are. It can be something as big as creating that. But it can be as simple as, like William was saying, facial expressions and gestures. A big part of supported decision making is respecting the choices of the people we're helping support. And some big emphasis is just making sure not to rush the decision or forcing a decision when they haven't considered it as well.
Your choices and preferences around your life deserve the same time and attention as anyone else. Having a good list of the types of accommodations and tools you need can be helpful. For example, giving new staff this list beforehand can help prepare them to support you in school, doctor appointments, and beyond. Having a communication partner trained to check in with me during meetings or appointments when there is a decision being discussed helps keep me, the person, at the center of the decision. There is nothing worse than having everyone talk about me instead of including me in the discussion. Ask if we have anything to add or say, read our body language, break down information into plain language, or give us extra time when needed. Even if it means scheduling a second meeting or appointment.
So again, another tool that we use is just explaining choices clearly and you explaining it in ways that your child or having your staff explain it to you in ways that you would understand, in ways that you process the information, whether that's using images, maybe you process best with images, maybe it's words, or maybe voices, or maybe even using a video to help you understand what type of decision that you're making, using pros and cons lists to address the potential consequences. The emphasis of this is helping you make an informed decision. Don't let others make the decision for you, and don't let other people rush you to make the decision. Take the time you need to be able to understand. And like William is saying, it's helpful to know what tools help you make these decisions, help you understand the types of decisions you're making, and make sure your supporters and staff are aware of that to help support you there.
I may have limited speech, but I communicate in many ways. For me, SDM might look different every day. But what doesn't change is that I am always given the opportunity to decide for myself first. I prefer to type out my thoughts on a keyboard. I also spell on letterboards too. I have always preferred text-based communication over pictures. My circle of support knows this about me. Hard days are a different story. There are moments I get overwhelmed or anxious, and typing or spelling is too difficult. This is when my support finds accessible ways for me to communicate. I am offered choices, I point and gesture too. The goal is that my communication is respected and understood. My access to AAC that works for me is imperative. Not only that, my support needs to be trained in order to help me. I should say that my circle of support is my right to choose. This also is imperative. Case in point, in high school I was paired with staff that didn't work for me. Without a good rapport, my communication suffers. Later, I was paired with staff who had no training. This was a recipe for disaster. Needless to say, I was eventually homeschooled so that I could continue my academic learning. As I live my life today, I am reassured that my circle of support know how to help me. Whatever I may need, it's nice knowing that I have them as a safety net to help guide me. I may make some poor choices sometimes, but man, do I learn from my mistakes. SDM does not promise a perfect life, but it does give me the agency and autonomy that is needed by every human being. Let's hear what strategies for communication work for you, William.
It is sometimes hard for people outside my circle of support to remember to include me in the conversation. If I know what I want to talk about at an appointment or meeting, it helps to prepare a few talking points and save them in my iPad. It also helps to share the accommodations I need at the start of my meeting, such as extra time while I type, the ability to use low tech, or if it is a virtual meeting, I ask to use the chat. As an AAC user, it is easy to get overlooked or lost in the conversation. My communication support partner will sometimes need to speak up for me to be heard by the speaking world. Teaching them to say, William has something he would like to type or say, and then giving me the time I need to do so, is an important tool.
Only a trained communication partner would be familiar with the strategies that would help me to communicate. Please let that sink in. Many students like myself, who have unreliable speech and use AAC, are often paired with untrained staff at school. Having lived through that experience, it feels impossible to be understood. Thankfully, now I have access to the support I need to communicate, but even now, as I mentioned before, there are moments when this is difficult. As an autistic, I have sensory and motor differences that impact my life daily. My trained staff know to first help me find calm. Next, I would get the motor coaching I need to organize my body. My communication is better when I feel safe and am regulated. Supporting someone to make decisions means you have to put in the effort to learn what your person needs to be their best selves.
Like William and Bella were saying, these are some strategies that they use for communication in order to use supported decision making. So these are some questions that we urge you to think about as you begin to implement supported decision making in your life. Think about how you respond when it gets overwhelming to participate in a conversation. Pausing and having the ability to pause and understand. And sharing your fears and preferences beforehand. Other strategies can be, like William mentioned, having time beforehand to prepare for make a decision, whether it's at a doctor's office or at an IEP meeting or an IPP meeting, giving that time and space so that you can voice your choices beforehand with your supporters. Our next section now is we're going to go into more about supported decision making in action, where William and Bella will be able to share their more stories on supported decision making.
Supported decision making, or SDM, wasn't an option when I was 18, so we chose conservatorship. However, my parents practice SDM with me. Because they have good systems in place, they've done the hard work first. People should always be the center of their own lives and supported as much or as little as needed. Today, supported decision making is available in several states, including California. What can you expect with SDM? You are in the driver's seat and choose your supporters who will help you make choices. This can be family, friends, or professionals. Remember, they are your circle of support, and the goal is to help you with your decisions. This support can be continuously strong at different points and have various degrees to keep our lives complete. Figuring out how to keep the individual at the center is the biggest part of the equation. For some, this is informal, but for others, you can decide to use legal documents. As your life changes, the type and amount of support you need may change too. That is exactly what SDM is designed to do. Disability should not limit a life with voice and choice. With the right support, anything is possible.
Having experienced a marginalized education did not set me up for success. This is something that can be changed and is the reason I am passionate about advocacy. I first learned about supported decision-making in my leadership and advocacy training. I quickly realized that despite being conserved, my family had been helping me make decisions for myself all along. When I was conserved, SDM did not exist. Having rights removed is not the only way to protect vulnerable youth. As an advocate for SDM, I am cognizant of the importance of educating teachers, families, and students about their rights to use SDM. I have to say I have improved my communication because I have realized what I decide matters. My voice becomes more empowered when I use SDM. Because I struggled a lot in high school, my parents felt it was not important to continue trying to earn my diploma. I felt otherwise. And because my decision was respected, they helped fight for the accommodations and support I needed. I will be forever grateful for the right to decide for myself what is best for me. I am now a student pursuing higher education, not because that is what my parents wanted, but it is what I wanted. SDM makes me accountable to me. My life will have my mark on it, as it should.
So I know the big question is, when and where do you need support? Some tools that we have here are this chart on exploring decision to support. So it talks about different types of decisions that you can make in your life, and you can decide whether this is an area where you can decide with no extra support. This is a decision you're capable of making. Maybe this is a decision that you need some support with. Or there can even be some decisions where you want to use something known as substitute decision making, where you need someone to make the decision for you. And that's something that you can decide and think about with your circle of support. So this is a type of worksheet you would sit down and work through with your supporters to kind of think about what type of support you need. And Michaela just put this worksheet in the chat as well. So for the small section that we provided on the screen right now, it can be something as large as, can I decide if and where I want to work? Maybe that's a decision that you need some support with. Can I look to find a job? Maybe you need help deciding when and where you want to work, but whether or not looking for the job itself, that's a decision that you know how to make. So this is just all about daily life and employment, but this also pertains to decisions about your healthcare, decisions about your finances, decisions about other daily life things, such as what you spend your money on everyday purchases, on what types of foods that you're going to eat throughout today. So this worksheet kind of helps you through thinking about the supports you need. It also gives you time to think about who would be the best to support you in those decisions. For example, maybe I really need help with my computer. My mom knows she is not tech savvy. She is not going to be a good supporter for me there. But someone like my dad is really tech savvy and is has a computer background. He would be someone that would be a good supporter for me there. So I know people have began asking some questions about supported decision making in healthcare. Because it was just passed in law in a couple years ago, supported decision making is beginning to make waves in the healthcare space as well as in the education space. So in the law, you are allowed to have a supporter with you no matter what, in written communication, whether it's through email or having them present there in different meetings that you may have. So, for supportive decision making in healthcare, trusted supporters can help you access healthcare, understand the medical information, as well as help you make these medical decisions. Like all of us, people with disabilities need support to understand the healthcare information and to communicate it with their doctors and nurses to manage their daily life needs. And so when we go into our next slide here, these are some tools that you can use. So on the left side right here, which will be linked, both of these documents are linked in the handbook that we have in the end. It's how to advocate for supported decision-making in healthcare. Because it is so new right now, it is something that we're still educating our providers in, which you all have a role to play. Supported decision-making can also be used when you have a healthcare passport here on the right-hand side, kind of helping you prepare for a meeting to make healthcare decisions, writing out, talking about your brief medical history, what your current medications are, when, what type, and when do you prefer to take your medication. And next, we'll go into a section on supported decision-making and finances. I think finances is another big topic that everyone has concerns about for supported decision-makings. As parents, you might be worried about your child being taken advantage of financially. And as self-advocates, you might be concerned that someone might be trying to take your money or make you force you into a contract that makes you liable to paying money out that you might not have. So some tools that you can use for supported decision-making in finances is creating a joint bank account, where you and then your supporter is listed on there, so you can check in and do check-ins on your budget and seeing when and where you're spending money. Other things, the joint bank accounts help manage money and prevent overspending. It also allows money to be regularly sent from a different bank account into the self-advocate's bank account. Other reasons why people like this is the joint bank account can be filed under the parent's social security number, which then allows you to protect your eligibility for different public benefits. Other tools you can use is a durable power of attorney for finances. This allows a trusted individual to have the legal authority to act on behalf of the person with a disability financially. This doesn't require the involvement of a court, it's just simply a signature with the notary. Other things are CalAble accounts, which is California Achieving a Better Life Experience, a path out of poverty. Able account money can be withdrawn tax-free, and it can be used to pay for things like housing, transportation, healthcare, and other basic living expenses. And you can contribute up to $15,000 per year into a CalAble account without it impacting Social Security, Medicaid, or Medicare benefits. Other options include a special needs trust, which allows families and supporters to set aside funds for an individual with a disability without jeopardizing their ability to receive public benefits, such as SSI or Medicaid. And finally, if you are receiving SSI income and you would need help managing there, you can apply to have a representative payee. Representative payee to help you manage the funds that you get through SSI there.
I don't think I would be here today without supported decision making. I was lucky that my parents followed this principle at home, but it should have taken place at school too. As a special education student, I was not granted academic learning in my early years, and my communication went untapped at school. Without communication, the ability to show my intelligence and make decisions was not accessible. My hope is that your loved one will fare much better. Learning to speak my mind has been my greatest gift. STM is essential for all students. It starts with presuming competence and allowing students to make daily real-life choices. Making choices is hard if not practiced. Involving students in all aspects of their education means their input is a guiding key towards meeting their needs. It just makes sense to include students in their own education. For me, STM has allowed me to pursue my educational goals. That is important to me.
The right to vote is such an important one. First, ask the person you are supporting if they would like to vote. I remember being at our local farmers market and a community member was there registering voters. When he asked me and not just my mom if I wanted to vote, it was a nice surprise. Think about how you or the person you support communicates. I use a letter board, my iPad, and even choices. My support person has all these tools ready for me. For example, with my letter board and my mom's help recording my responses, I was able to complete my registration. I prepare to vote just like many of you might. I watch the debates, and as a family we read up on candidates and measures. I am given the opportunity to talk about what is important to me, and if I have questions, I ask. I prefer to vote by mail since I need extra time and breaks. Someone in my circle of support helps me by reading each part of the ballot and marks my choices for me. Together we walk to the polling place and drop them off. It's important that the systems who help us learn about SDM too. Think about this. Is your student the subject of the conversation, or part of the conversation? For years, well-meaning teachers would talk about me, or my goals, and would forget that I was there. There were so many observations and assessments done to decide what was best for me. I was a fish in the fishbowl, and most of the time, no one thought to ask me about the depth of the ocean I wanted to explore. How will you make the change to teaching your students how to fish instead of feeding them the fish? Advocacy skills are something you grow. Presuming competence and building trust goes hand in hand with giving individuals the autonomy and agency to thrive. I'm not saying to presume an individual knows everything or is able to make all their decisions alone. Rather, I am saying that they are deserving of support and the dignity of being heard, or ultimately, understood when they express themselves, however that may look.
Other areas supported decision making is important is in public safety and law enforcement. Unfortunately, not all first responders, when you call 911, are equipped to respond to people with disabilities, and misunderstandings can happen and it can as quickly escalate a situation. One of the tools we recommend is preparing in advance to help find resources that will be most helpful to you when encountering situation such as public safety, such as thinking about the fires that are going on, as well as involvement with law enforcement. Things such as if you're experiencing a behavioral or mental health crisis, it's important to look at the community resources that you have in your area, whether it's a different hotline that you might want to call, whether it's educating people in your community. If these behaviors are showing up, you are in a current crisis and you need other types of support rather than reaching out to 911. So it's important to educate people on the preferences and how you may act during these situations, because a lot of sometimes calling emergency services through 911 doesn't always end up how you exactly want it to. Again, there's some forms and paperwork that can help protect you in these cases, such as a durable power of attorney, which you can show to law enforcement if there's mental health related issues. Also, you can use an advanced healthcare directive or release of information so you can stay involved and support and get support in these types of emergencies. And a big thing is a lot of people are afraid that you need to be a conservator to interact with law enforcement on behalf of or in support of a person with a disability, but that is not the case. And next, we're talking about some helpful forms for supported decision-making. One of the things is supported decision-making agreements. So this is not required, but it can be helpful when you want to attach supported decision-making agreements to legal documents. So as you can see on the screen here, it talks about who your supporter is, their contact information. And you can begin checking all the boxes of where you want their support, whether you want their help making choices about food, about clothing, or where to live and who to live with. You can go in and check these off with your supporters. So here is kind of a brief synopsis. We've talked about a lot of different types of documents or different types of forms that you can use with supported decision making. So here is a kind of a quick guide on what areas that you want to get support and what types of documents might be helpful in this situation. And again, supported decision making agreements are not required, but can be helpful to attach to these things. And then we also have our parent handbook, which will discuss all of these more in depth as well as how to get involved in other resources as well. So finally, just how to get started about supported decision making. Like we said, today is just kind of an introduction to supported decision making to get you know what it's all about and how to get started. The next area is really how to identify supporters and create the goals that you want to achieve. Our next decision is to create a supported decision making agreement if that's what you desire, or going through a worksheet to kind of think about how you want to use supported decision making, what areas and what types of supports you need. Next is to determine which forms are needed for your case, whether it's you need some more help financially and you want to be able to learn more about starting up a joint bank account or getting a representative payee. And next is just advocating for supported decision making in your life or your child's life if you are a parent of someone with a disability. And so these are just some tips to start getting started, thinking about forming a team, thinking through questions, and thinking about whether you wanted to use it more formally or practicing it there. Again, like William and Bella have mentioned earlier, if this is something you haven't been practicing yet, think about where you already might be using it. I think all of us can agree that you have used some support to make some decision in your life, whether it's something as small as picking out what clothes you want to wear today, or something as big as deciding where you want to live next. So think about where you're already using support and how you can expand it to more decisions in your life. So our next slide here is going to be the QR code for our supported decision-making parent handbook. So this is more geared toward parents, but for self-advocates, there's still a lot of good resources that you can use to talk with your supporters in there as well. And Michaela has linked that in the chat as well. And then next we have we're going to open it up for some questions and answers. I know there have been some really good questions.
And I've been tracking them for you, so I can help you with that.
Perfect.
Thank you, William and Bella. That was really great. I haven't seen this version of your presentation. I really liked it. It was great. I think it's got we're getting more and more defined as to how to talk about supported decision making, which is part of this process. Okay, so if you have questions, put them in the chat and I will go through them. But the first question is how known is SDM within healthcare professions and higher education?
Yeah, so it is becoming more prevalent for healthcare providers and people in higher education to know about it. Again, the law is really new. It wasn't enacted until 2022. So there's a lot of work still being done to educate healthcare providers and educators. DVU was able to get a grant to kind of educate and teach people about supported decision making, just like we are doing today. But other different groups, like I believe Cal State, East Bay, and some other agencies are currently developing out curriculum to educate providers as well. We're also creating some resources as well that we hope to launch in the next couple of months to help you educate your providers on supported decision making, and knowing that even if you're above 18, you are legally allowed to have a supporter with you in the doctor's office, and you're not allowed. Anyone that you request to be there with you can be there.
Yeah, I know I've been doing elder care with way too many of my family members this past month, and and no one lives near me. So every time they get they get my family member, and then they ask them right there while I'm on the phone, can I talk to her? And all they have to do is say yes or no, and then I can talk to them. So, you know, I think that people are getting more and more used to the fact that people bring in support for themselves and they just have to ask permission. That's all they got to do. Okay, so then we have the question is who or how is it assured that the circle of support is well trained and informed about how to provide the support needed? Is it 434?
Yeah. I can help respond a little bit, but I'm not sure if maybe William and Isabella want
I can jump in too. I got
to share more about their circle of support too. I think when we look at the law, technically supporters have to have a certain requirements in order to be a supporter. Some of those things include not having any potential like financial interests, like where they can gain financial interest in there. They can't be have been reported for any cases of abuse, and so there are some legal requirements by law of what has to happen in order to be a supporter. So there is that.
I think also you have to come at it from the angle that your circle of support, you determine your circle of support. So if you wouldn't pick somebody who wasn't trained to be, like, who didn't know you well enough to be your support person, right? So because you're so in this supported decision making, you're so much a part of it. You're training your own people. You're having your own people who you trained be there. It wouldn't be strangers, I guess is what I'm thinking. I don't know, William, looks like, I think William's creating something. Sorry for this bell ringing. I'm gonna have William answer before we go on.
Before William answers, I'm gonna sneak in since we have just a second. Because we're already losing some people. I know not everybody can stay for Q&A. So Darlene really quickly mentioned that Vivian is running a grant for DVU, and that's how we have funding for these trainings and for Vivian, and we're doing trainings for professionals and parents and self-advocates. But it's really, really important for us to be able to have just like some data to report back to the people who gave us the grant. So I'm gonna put a link in the chat. It's just 4 questions if you have time to just answer 4 questions about like what you knew before and after training. That'd be really helpful for Vivian's project. So I'm putting that in there.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Michaela.
William, did you have something that you created for this question?
1 second, he's just finishing.
Okay. William takes his multimodality very seriously and uses all the modalities.
There we go.
Yes, the people who support me are all people I know. We are working on getting training added to our IPP with a person able to train my staff on how I communicate.
Perfect. And Bella, did you have anything that you needed to say before I move on?
She added it in the chat, darling. But she just said, I think it's loving people who care about you. That's who's in her circle.
Okay, perfect. Great. All right, another question we have is, are there agencies who have individuals who can help my family walk through 5 steps to get started?
So as of right now, I'm not sure about any specific agency. I do know that if you are wanting to go through the supported decision-making agreement route, there are some regional centers that are hosting one-on-one sessions to kind of build out a supported decision-making agreement. Otherwise, there's not necessarily an agency that we know as of yet, though there are a lot of resources available of people sharing their stories on how to use supported decision-making, different types of tools, such as the handout that we shared earlier with exploring decision-making supports, so that you can go through there. Our handbook is a really great tool. It's a pretty big handbook. It's about 60 pages, but it goes in depth into all the topics that we talk about. In April, we're trying to launch our supported decision-making training and information center website, which will have a bunch of stories, more how-tos, and other how-to videos as well. So there's a lot of upcoming things, and this is just kind of like a little teaser about supported decision-making, but there are some really good resources out there so far, but not, to answer the question, not necessarily an agency to walk through the individual steps.
Okay, I'm gonna do a couple more questions, Mari, and then I'll come on to you. Is there a network of attorneys who have been trained regarding SDM and AAC users' nonverbal communication?
I know Disability Rights California does have a host of different lawyers that work on different cases. We are working on doing some trainings on different lawyers as well, but again, because it is so new, we haven't necessarily trained all of them yet.
Part of the challenge is that a lot of times the lawyers are looking, I'm not saying this in a bad way, it's just a factual way. Lawyers are there to help you with conservatorship, and it goes into a contract, and there's agreements and there's financial commitments to them. And then, but in supported decision making, there isn't any financial commitments from them. So, or to them. So some people perceive it as something they don't need to know about because they're not gonna be involved in that, right? As a lawyer goes. So anyways, it's about, like you were saying, Vivian, it's all about educating people because it's so new. So we're trying to just keep spreading the word that you gotta learn more about this. Mari, you have your hand up? Come on.
Thank you. Wow, this is like music to my ears. So thank you, Isabella. Thank you, William. Thank you, Vivian, and everybody else involved. You know, I'm a mother of a young man who's 19. And like you said, this is new. And the first thing that, as a mother, who throw you in your face as soon as he turns 18 is the conservatorship. You know, when it comes to school, to doctors, they don't want to talk to you anymore. And so being Hispanic, we encountered this, and I'm going to say harassment. And let me repeat it, harassment. from all agencies, regional center, doctors, schools, like you either sign it, you start the process, or we no longer want to talk to you. You know, I'm also advocating for another mom right now who school just kick her out of the IEP because the daughter is 18. They don't even want to accept the power of attorney. So this is really, serious business. And to hear you guys talking about the SDM is amazing. It's wonderful. DVU, Judy Mark is, always talk about it. And we are pushing this to the master plan because I am also advocating for it. I want this to become law that no family can decide to conserve their loved one if they have not received also the information about the SDM. So I just want to say thank you because this is a great, great need in our community. So thank you.
So we all did, Vivian and Bella and William and their other member, Otto, did a presentation for our SELPA that I live in Whittier, because I had connections there. And we started letting the transition teachers know, the high school teachers know, and then we did it for their CAC group. So I think that if you don't live in my area, but you can live wherever you live, talking to your CAC would be the place to start, or to the program specialist or the director of special education in your area, about just letting them know, hey, did you know that there's actually in law now? Because they don't know sometimes that it isn't conservatorship or nothing. It's conservatorship or supported decision-making or nothing. And so if you don't know about it, you need to know about it because your families are starting to know about it. And enlisting, we're happy to help. Enlisting help to share that story and share what it is. And again, they didn't necessarily know everything about it. And it's real important to hit those high school teachers for sure, and the transition teachers.
And this is what I've been doing personally. I'm part of the ICC as well. And this is what we've been doing because we encounter a situation that is just like I say, harassment. And for me to say that, I feel bad saying it in public, but it's,
Oh, no,
but
it
it's
is.
good. I'm not lying.
No.
I have a very serious situation that maybe you guys want to step in and help, because this mom is crying and she just like being cornered, like nobody even want to accept my power of attorney. And we were talking about this, the supported making decision and the alternatives to the conservatorship. I've been talking to people in the hospitals. I've been talking to them in my son's personal situation, same situation. They don't want to talk to me, but they want my son to make an appointment that he cannot even know how to make. So, we're teaching people, but they just like ignore it because they don't understand it. Because the only thing they have known for so many years is the conservatorship, and they feel and believe that's the only option.
Well, you gotta throw out AB 1663, because then that'll get their attention, like, what?
Yeah, and then
What?
piggybacking off of you, Darlene, I just put in the chat a resource that one of our fellow grantees for the created, and it's kind of a shortened version. We're coming up with our own version that's going to be a small on a size of a business card that you're going to be able to take with you anywhere. If anyone gives you trouble, you can show them that this is the law. But for now, we have this document, and it's about a couple of pages long, and I just put it in there, and it kind of briefly summarizes supported decision-making, the law, and what professionals, whether it's healthcare providers or educators, need to do to be able to respect the law and respect your choice to use supported decision-making.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm gonna bring Makai in.
Oh.
Thanks.
Yes, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I just wanted to say, assistant trained advocate CIO, but I also have a son on the spectrum, and when he was small, I remember it just seemed like an unspoken but push that children conservatized. I always thought, my son had a right to make his own decisions when he turned 18 and choices. And it is harassment is coercive when a school district coerces parents to not realize they have even a choice not to conservatize their children. I want to say that it is so in my job, I frequently interact with adults, feel disempowered, practicing their rights, speaking up for themselves, and in some cases, even when their condition may change as they get older and they may nonverbal or gain more language skills. But when they're concerned, it is so hard to peel it back because you have to ask for probate court, which does a lot of the conservatorship. You have to validate why the judge made a decision that essentially your child cannot make decisions. It's so hard to look. That's why I'm so happy for this law. And if a parent experiences harassment in a school district, they should go and file a grievance with the California Department of Education, contact DREDA, and their head of special education department. The student or the parent can do that. And that will change systemically if a lot of parents demand that advisory councils provide training, special ed directions, special ed teachers, and mandate during transition your child receives education in this legislation.
Those are great
Thank you.
points. Those are great points, okay. I think I'm gonna bring Tony in here in a second too, but I wanna dovetail on that, these decisions are put towards, coercion or mandated or however they present it to you as a school system when your child's 18. But I know many families who probably and have said they don't feel comfortable assuming that their child could be a part of making those decisions. And so then they're like, well, what should we do? And I think that as I think about those families, to me, it's not that their child can't make those decisions or can't be a part of making that decision. I think it's that family hasn't grown up thinking about how their person engages in their communication. So yes, the decisions are made when you're 18 or older, but the preparation has to start earlier than that. Because when you're 18 isn't the time to start learning. Anybody's child, you don't start making your problem solving skills known when you're 18. You're gonna have to have opportunities like fail, like you talked about, Isabella, where let me fail and let me learn and let me do more and different. And so all of that happens in elementary school. And so I really encourage younger families especially to start embracing the fact that there's a lot of critical thinking skills that need to be learned for you as parents to feel like, yes, my person, I prepared them to be in supportive decision making, and there's no reason we shouldn't do this, no matter what the kind of communication the person has access to. Okay, so I'm gonna bring Tony in real quick here. Tony? Did I bring you in? Asking to unmute. Are you ready, Coney? No, Tony. Okay.
Other questions I saw was how do you use supported decision making in an IEP meeting? That's something that we actually want to create a video on to talk more about it further. And I think one of the big things is involving the person with a disability in the IEP process. Not just talking about them while they're in the room without addressing them, and making them be a part of the IEP meeting, and whether that's preparing the goals themselves in I statements and creating their own goals for these IEP meetings. And a lot of that can come from support. And Bella and William, if you can chime in here as well, or type out your response here as well. With your experience using supported decision making in the education system, but it's really the preparation of the meeting beforehand, sitting down with your supporters, talking about what your goals are. What do you want out of this IEP meeting? What types of supports do you want or need at school to achieve the goals that you want to do, and setting that up beforehand so you aren't necessarily put on the spot in an IEP meeting as well.
Yeah, and you don't have to, I mean, I think rather, I was gonna say, really focusing on the whole concept of person-centered planning, you know, that's the thing now, right? In IPPs and in school as well, is that things need to be person-centered. And you all are the persons in the center. So putting yourself in the center, and using your support people, whether it just be your family or other people that you bring to the meeting, to remind everyone in the meeting, well, this is really up to William, or this is really, you know, Bella, what do you think about that? Redirecting the people who you think you shouldn't have to redirect, but sometimes we do have to redirect them to, you're not in charge here. And setting a different tone is really, it's about changing. We're changing the way people think about people and decision making. The other thing I wanted to put out there is that you don't, oh, Bella says, involving is essential, but doesn't mean that support needs are truly understood. That's right. And what I was going to say, Bella, is that for you to know that you could have different people on different avenues of your life, right? So you might have an uncle who's really great at finances, and he's on your supported decision making to help you with your finances. But he might be really terrible at thinking about your social recreational part of your life. And so he's not in that group, okay? So people on your team, in your supported decision-making group, we each have our roles. Like I'm with a friend's in his group, but he has people who are really good at finance. I know the systems that he lives and works in. And so that's my role, and that's identified to me already. So it doesn't have to be the same team for all the different things that come your way. You can highlight certain people based on their gifts themselves that they have. William was going to say something, I think. William says, have to say I started giving my input at my IEP by preparing a statement ahead of time. I also did some live typing. During the pandemic, I did Zoom and used chat. And Bella says, yes, she was referring to the IEP. Yeah. Preparing ahead of time is a good idea. Even writing to your team, the people you're going to be talking to, and say, hey, we're going to be talking about this. And William, you could write, I need your questions ahead of time so I can be prepared for the main part of our conversation. That sends a message that you're going to be sitting in that seat, right? It's all messaging. What else was I thinking on this? Oh, I'm drawing a blank. I had a thought.
Vivian, can I read you another question then? Is that
Yeah, did you see
okay?
that one I missed?
Yeah, Julie K asked at 4:59. She said, my 30-year-old son is conserved because the school district said when he turned 18, he had to be if I wanted to be present or involved at his IEPs. So how do we convince the courts that he doesn't need or never needed a conservatorship? My son has always been involved in decisions about his life.
Yeah, so that's one of the big things. A lot of people, after hearing about supported decision making, they want to end their conservatorship in order to practice supported decision making. So, with the new law, if both the conservator and the conservatee want to terminate the end of the conservatorship, they're supposed to be able to petition for the end of the conservatorship. We recently just heard of someone who's close to DBU. They were able to end the conservatorship and restore their rights to their son. And how they went about it was they filed a petition to end the conservatorship and brought evidence of their son using supported decision making. So their son talked about how he uses supported decision making in their life. He created a video as well as a slideshow presentation on supported decision making in his life and how he uses it and how he wants to end the conservatorship. And they were able to get the notice just this past week to successfully terminate their conservatorship.
Oh, that's great.
And can I, Vivian, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the times and in our presentation, we talk about how supported decision-making agreements are optional, that you can practice supported decision-making without it. However, if you're going to be exiting a conservatorship on the grounds that you're going to use supported decision-making, you'll want to have a supported decision-making agreement.
Right.
Yes. And so that will be a part of the proof that they need that you're using supported decision making. But if it is something that both you and your child want to exit out of, you are technically now, according to the law, allowed to petition to end the supported, to end the conservatorship.
Yeah. So Edith Hernandez said that she's having a hard time getting a notary to sign the supported decision-making forms for her daughter, that they live in the Bay Area. Are you just going to a regular, I'm assuming you're going to just like a notary, like you looked it up online and you found a notary. They might not know what you're talking about. I'm wondering if there's someone who's more familiar with disability, at least in your circle, that you could start putting the word out, hey, I'm looking for a notary. Because so many people are just notaries because they're just notaries. Like you don't even know it about them. They're just people. Yeah, you can try UPS, but I think that people are judging whether or not they take on that responsibility. So I would look to the community of disability and then explain it to them. And somebody might have a sister-in-law who's a notary or probably a notary, and you can get it through that way. Can I add another conservator? My son is 24. I don't know anything about that part. That would be a conservator question. I just know SDM.
And then to add to the story earlier about exiting the conservatorship, they were able to do that without a lawyer as well. So they just submitted the petition, and then when they had their hearing, they provided the evidence. So they were able to do it without a lawyer.
And we're bouncing around here in our chat line, but William had a great story where he wanted to prove a point. And so he said the first time the administrator walked out, excuse me, we gotta go to the top part where he said this. I have to say I started giving my input at my IEP meetings and use the chat. And then the first time the administrator walked out when he was giving his input to the bathroom to take a bathroom break. And so that he made the team wait for her to come back to finish his thought. Perfect. You got to change. We're changing people. We're changing the way things work now, and so we have to sometimes think of ways to get creative and draw attention to the fact that things are different now.
And then I know we are ending soon, but if you are a self-advocate and you want to learn more about supported decision making and even become a co-trainer or presenter like Bella and William here, to help us train other folks on supported decision making, this Thursday and next Thursday we're hosting a training session for self-advocates on supported decision making and how to become a presenter. And so Michaela just added the link to the registration form there. And again, we just want to emphasize that this is for self-advocates, for parents. We're in the works of developing a Train the Trainers program for parents coming soon, as well as more parent trainings on supported decision making and how to advocate for your child as well in the future. But again, if you're a self-advocate and want to learn more and get more involved in supported decision making work that DVU is doing, Michaela just added the registration link down in the chat as well.
Someone was asking if we had phone numbers, and we don't actually have a phone. We're all working remotely. We're a virtual agency. But thank you, Michaela, for putting everybody in there. The formula is typically the first name. Judy's is different, but first name and then at DVU. So if you want to talk to anybody, just know their name. Great. Very good. Well, I'm excited about all of you coming and learning more about supported decision making. I want to thank William and Bella and Vivian for creating the presentation and presenting it. That was really good and informative. And I know, and I can tell that you guys have been putting a lot of work into making the resources available to everyone and putting the time into making it known in our communities. So we shall continue that, I'm sure, through the grant. And we can have you guys come back and talk more about it once we get the grant going more too. William put in here that you can join him on the 28th at the Civic showcase. It's gonna be next week. So sign up for that, and you'll see in here, Civic is a group, it's a national organization. So it's kind of fun because actually we are the 19th state to get supported decision making? I can't remember the number.
I think it's somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there. So
20, around there.
we didn't make this up. We just finally got into the game. There's people all over the country who do these kinds of things, and Civic is a national group. So I'm going to say goodbye. I want to thank Lorna.